Hello, this is my Crazy Ex channel. Please subscribe.
I 45F cheated on my husband 44M a decade ago, got pregnant, and gave full custody of my daughter to my affair partner. Decade later I want to see her but husband prevents me. Need advice. Story 1-2. Throwaway for obvious reasons. Sorry for the length but I need to get this off my chest. I may post this on other subreddits for more feedback. Sorry for bad grammar. I'm on mobile BTW. Long story short, I cheated on my husband a decade ago at my friend's bachelorette party and got pregnant. When my first daughter was born, it clearly didn't look like my husband. He's black, I'm white with blonde hair and blue eyes, same as my affair partner. Got shamed by the hospital staff, parents, siblings, and husband. He ended up forgiving me, partly because we already had 5-year-old twins, but threatened me with divorce unless I gave my daughter up for adoption. I felt guilty over cheating on him, but I didn't want to give my daughter up and abandon her to the foster system, so our compromise was to give full custody of her to her bio father who offered to raise her. Fast forward a decade later and we moved to another state to escape the stigma. My husband and I are now on good terms after some marriage counseling and the kids know about my affair. I've since had another daughter. Still, I desperately want to see my oldest daughter but my husband refuses to let me. We get periodic updates on her from friends because my husband doesn't trust me to get a direct text from her bio father. Furthermore, the child support payments I pay him are starting to hurt my finances. My husband had me sign a prenup with lawyers present and refused to combine finances, so paying child support takes nearly 1/5 of my income every year. We usually agree that certain house bills are paid by the other, but my personal salary a year is literally ducked because 20% of it is deducted annually. $50,000 HS teacher compared to his $400,000 doctor. Bringing these problems up with him usually leads to an argument where he says, "Well, she can always come visit you by herself when she's 18. I don't want to destroy my family by bringing this issue up over and over again, but I also don't want to be a deadbeat mother to my other daughter." From what I've been hearing from friends who live near them, her bio father brings a lot of women around her, which is starting to worry me if that's true. I need advice on what to do. I feel trapped. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, honestly, if he found out at birth that the kid wasn't his, you shouldn't have even mentioned her. Just stop. Imagine spending 9 months thinking the kid is yours, preparing for it, being so happy, and then boom. This is a situation men end their lives over. I sure as hell wouldn't even look at you ever again. He laid out the ground rules for reconciliation and you accepted. Leave it at that. Your husband is under no obligation to care for your daughter as well. And if she wants to see you, then she can reach out. Redditor 2, I'm surprised at the number of commenters who seem to think that having no contact with your child is an acceptable condition of staying married. I myself am surprised you accepted it. I personally think the only way to go would be to accept that my husband would divorce me, so I could be a part of all of my children's lives, rather than be cut out entirely from one child to be wife and mother for the other two. Why did you take this bargain? It seems like you and your husband are invested in maintaining the illusion that an affair never happened and you don't have another child. This is craziness. No good can come of it. Stand up, be an adult, say I did have an affair. I do have another child, it's not the first time it's ever happened. I do want to be a part of all their lives if the girl is ready and wants to have you in her life. And if that means a divorce and being a lot poorer than you were before, and giving up the charade of a happy marriage with children, you take it. You are taking a lot of grief for your decisions, Hedda, but I personally can't believe your husband could make such a demand. I can't believe he wouldn't want to know your daughter himself. If my husband had another child, of course I would want to know him or her. Your husband can't ensure your future fidelity or maintain the facade of a perfect marriage by building a brick wall around you. And you shouldn't try to comply with such an absurd demand. You have your own dignity, which includes acknowledging past mistakes and their consequences like an adult. Take back the power of your own decision making. If you want and need to be part of all your children's lives, as I would, tell your husband that's what's happening, and take the fallout. You will eventually find someone who will know that you had an affair and a child 10 years ago, and love you all the same, and not try to restrict you from seeing your children. To maintain the appearance of a fake fairy tale. You do not deserve to be punished and controlled in perpetuity for a mistake you make 10 years ago. Redditor follow up. You will eventually find someone who will know that you had an affair and a child 10 years ago, and love you all the same, and not try to restrict you from seeing your children. To maintain the appearance of a fake fairy tale. Would you? Redditor 3, your husband is a saint, I guess. You already did him enough wrong for him to rightfully leave you. Are you sure you want to reopen those wounds and rekindle those feelings he's likely holding still? Redditor 4, not to be spiteful, but you made your bed, and now you gotta sleep in it. You made a terrible decision. You put your marriage understandable so above your bastard child and expect to waltz in after 10 years of no contact? It doesn't work like that, sadly. Hope for the best. Redditor 5, but husband prevents me. Firstly, no husband doesn't prevent you. He put forward some very fair boundaries. You disrespected him massively 10 years ago, and you're considering doing it again. To be clear on what this man has sacrificed to save face with you. His dignity, the fact he stayed with you after finding out during the birth is insane. He upped and moved state, leaving family, friends and his support network behind to continue your relationship away from stigma you created. He offered the compromise that he's happy for her to visit you when she's 18. The fact you even dwell on things like your personal salary just shows your complete lack of self-awareness. Seriously, take some time and reflect on how much trauma you've inflicted on others, and think about how you're considering doing it again. I genuinely can't get over how you're trying to position yourself as a victim of your husband in this situation at all. Your husband reads as though he is a saint among men, and you're genuinely considering breaking fair boundaries that were set a decade ago. Crazy. Redditor 6, why should your husband, who you cheated on, pay child support for your child that was a product of an affair you had? No matter what his salary is in comparison to yours, that is not his responsibility in any way, and he shouldn't be expected to help out with that at all. I wouldn't want to if I were him either. Imagine paying CS for a kid that was conceived while you were being cheated on. I can't believe you're even still married. Redditor 7, so let me fill in some blanks here. You went to a bachelorette party, cheated on your husband with a stripper and got pregnant. You had no intention of telling your husband, so you rolled the dice hoping the baby would come out looking like him. Then you want him to raise another man's child. He's not having it. You blow up your family, but for some mind-numbing reason he decides to stay in the marriage. He's at least smart enough to protect himself financially, thank God. Now you're being squeezed a bit financially from the child support you pay, so you'd like to get custody to end the payments. Your husband doesn't want any part of it, yet you insist. My head wants to explode. After what you put that man through, he says jump, you say how high. You are incredibly selfish. Totally disregarding the pain and suffering you caused that poor man. You think because 10 years have gone by he's forgotten? You gotta be a narcissist. It's the only thing that would make sense of any of this. Redditor follow up, yup. Op agreed to something in order to save her family, and I don't think it's fair to re-traumatize the husband by trying to renegotiate the terms she agreed to just because she's now literally paying the price. Op, it's unfortunate a child is involved, but you're putting it on your husband to have the compassion to give in to you. Hasn't he done enough? Also, you're judging the bio dad's lifestyle, really? Try thinking about whether your daughter would want her life disrupted right now just because you've had a change of heart 10 years later. Redditor 8, I'd think your child's perspective is the most important here. Does she want to meet you? She spent 10 years without you in her life. Having you suddenly walk through the door like, here's mommy, might not go over that well. Just something to consider. Redditor 9, this is way above Reddit pay grade, and I think is something best unpacked during professional couples counseling. You're not going to receive useful advice here because of the complex nature of the situation. Go back to counseling, there's still stuff there to work on. Redditor 10, I expected this post to be largely focused on how much you miss your baby. How you've wanted her all along and can't stand the thought of being away from her any longer. Maybe it's just me, but I found it strange that there seems to be a huge focus on money and the affair partner's social life. It seems like a control issue for you, and I don't think you can just pop into a kid's life like a decade later without other major consequences. Are you ready to talk to your daughter about why you have a family without her in it? What about her half-siblings? It's a whole big huge complicated thing and I wouldn't mess with it. Redditor 11. The problem here is y'all should have got divorced 10 years ago. The whole situation sounds toxic. Redditor 12. Adopted kid here. It's no longer your decision to have a relationship with your daughter. It is her decision to make. Have respect for your daughter, your husband, the bio dad and your other kids. This upends everyone's life and benefits no one, not even you. Redditor 13. My mother was a cheater. My life is so much easier when she's not in it. Everything is me, me, me. She had zero concern for the fact that her decisions tore my dad apart and he forgave her time and time again, mostly to keep his kids and the 3 that weren't his because he was the stand-up man who raised us. He raised me since I was 3 years old. He never once told us about the infidelity and he didn't talk bad about our mother. He was great like that. She on the other hand only wanted to come around after the divorce and she was no longer being supported by our dad. She didn't want us, she wanted someone else to take care of her so she didn't have to get a job. You have zero right to the position of mother in your daughter's life. You are simply her egg donor and carrier. You defiled the sanctity of your marriage by having the affair and then waiting until you knew you were caught to fess up to it. Were you going to tell him about the affair at all had the child not so obviously been his? It speaks to the type of person you are. You worked on your marriage and were able to stay together under the agreement that you don't have the child in your life. Then you seek out info about her from other people you know are in her life. People who give you updates, which I think is insane. Seeing this child is a decision best left to the child who you abandoned. You don't get to magically pop into her life when it's convenient for you. It needs to be her decision. You've proven to your husband that you can't keep your promises even after marriage counseling. You seem to be okay with the fact of uprooting your other children's life by pursuing the one you wouldn't keep. You know that to have her in your life you will lose your full-time rights to your other children. What makes this one you wouldn't keep worth more than the ones you did? I think you are in no position to demand anything and are just sore about the money you gotta pay. That's what this comes off as. I cannot believe you are complaining about a prenup. He was a smart man to insist on one clearly. Although I don't see the point of a prenup unless you have some reservations about the trustworthiness about your partner, and if that's the case, why marry? You made your bed, lie in it. Your bad decisions keep coming back to affect other people. I think your husband and you can't have a healthy relationship at this point. Redditor 14. I see a lot of she probably cheated for a reason. Happy people normally don't cheat. Bullshit. Don't take that to make you feel better about yourself and your mistake. You ruined your daughter's life. She might be happy with their dad, but just knowing that her mother chose between her and a man probably makes her feel a certain way. If you are not happy in a relationship, address it. Work on it if you can't. Separate, and you could see all of your kids possibly paying child support for all of them, but that's what men do all the time and we all want equality, right? Why cheat and drag not just yourself but your husband and your other 2 kids? You knew what you were doing. Your husband is a smart man for separating finances because for all he knows you could have gone and spent his money with any other man. 'Cause you never know, you probably cheated for a reason, or normally happy people don't cheat. He has no obligation to pay child support for your daughter. Don't victimize yourself. This is something you brought on yourself and will have to live with it for the rest of your life. If you want to see your daughter do it, life is short. Don't wait until she grows resentment towards you, because the longer you wait the harder it will be. Redditor 15. It's none of your business who your affair partner brings around his child. Pay your support. You decided the relationship with your husband is more important than a child you created. You gave up your rights. Redditor 16. I mean, he shouldn't be responsible for any of the child support. I'm not sure why you would even being that up. It's irrelevant. You should be paying child support for your children. You made the choice to cheat, and actions have consequences. As far as your daughter goes, I can understand him not wanting to be around her, or trusting you with the guy. You proved you can't be trusted, and she is just a reminder of your deception. As far as the bio dad goes, not sure why you're surprised he has a bunch of women around. You know from personal experience he is the to-go for whoever is easy and willing. Redditor 17. When my first daughter was born, it clearly didn't look like my husband. He's black, I'm white with blonde hair and blue eyes, same as my affair partner. Got shamed by the hospital staff, parents, siblings, and husband. Everyone found about you cheating when the baby was born? Yikes. He ended up forgiving me, partly because we already had 5-year-old twins, but threatened me with divorce unless I gave my daughter up for adoption. I felt guilty over cheating on him, but I didn't want to give my daughter up and abandon her to the foster system, so our compromise was to give full custody of her to her bio father who offered to raise her. Okay, you mention your husband's threat condition, and the compromise. What was your preferred solution? What did you compromise between? Divorce on the one side, but what on the other side? Did you want full custody? 50% custody? Still, I desperately want to see my oldest daughter, but my husband refuses to let me. What did your original agreement say about you seeing your daughter? Full custody to the father doesn't mean you can't see your daughter, so was you not meeting your daughter part of the agreement with your husband? Still, I desperately want to see my oldest daughter, but my husband refuses to let me. We get periodic updates on her from friends because my husband doesn't trust me to get a direct text from her bio father. Perhaps you should try dealing with those trust issues in your marriage. I would suggest further marriage consultation. Furthermore, the child support payments I pay him are starting to hurt my finances. My husband had me sign a prenup with lawyers present and refused to combine finances, so paying child support takes nearly 1/5 of my income every year. You say things like your husband threatening with divorce, and having you sign a prenup. These were all things you could refuse to do. You agreed to them under your own free will. You're still free to renegotiate these terms, or divorce him. From what I've been hearing from friends who live near them, her bio father brings a lot of women around her, which is starting to worry me if that's true. Why does that worry you? He's a single parent, he can do what he wants. Redditor 18, I don't mean to sound negative, but you kind of already destroyed your family when you had the affair whilst having twins at home. My father had many affairs, my mother being one of the mistresses. These situations duck kids. It's like there is no clear guide of what healthy love is like, and that definitely imprints itself on you as a child. You begin to think, if my parent can commit this betrayal and cause this pain, surely I can't trust anyone to not hurt me. The inability to trust becomes so real it's almost tangible. Which leads me to my next point. At low points in my life, I have both experienced and practiced infidelity. Spoiler. Both ducking suck. In my opinion and from personal experience, the later indicates a lack of self-control, and usually some sort of inadequate perception of oneself or one's relationship. This is why infidelity or external attention validation feels like a salve for sexual insecurity, albeit very temporary, and usually preceded by guilt. I wonder if there is some harbored contention between you and your husband, considering the financial differences, which I imagine results in lifestyle differences. I think your only noble recourse is to prioritize the health and happiness of all of your children, even if it puts you in a position to have to restructure your dreams of what a family should look like, but only if being with all of your children is what your heart really wants. As a married woman hopelessly in love with my husband, losing him, the love we've created, and my stability would be unfathomable, but I would put a poison dagger to his heart if it meant protecting my kids. People make mistakes, and duck, don't we all wish we could take back a few severe ones? I'm sorry you are in this situation, but time, kindness and forgiveness for yourself, and space for self-introspection should help. If being with your children is what you think is best for you, you may have to consider a world without your husband, and with you as sole matriarch. Explain why and how you came to that decision to your kids. Can your twins empathize with their siblings' situation? Do you talk to your kids about missing your other child? Exposing your vulnerability will help them understand. As a psychology student specializing in child development, I can tell you that kids are much wiser than we give them credit for. Again, just be sure you are honest with what you actually want. Worst case scenario, you find yourself stewing in resentment because it's all too much to handle independently. That would be pretty bad and would likely cause more damage. Redditor 19, I may come as harsh, but a person with life decisions like yours is better to stay out of both families' life. Redditor 20, you chose your husband over your child. You don't get the luxury of trying to break into her life now. If she wants to seek you out when she's 18, she will. Leave her and your ex-fling alone. Story 22. 29F wife cheated on me 33 meters. This is a rather long story I suppose, but as you to bear with me. I will add a small summary at the bottom for the impatient. 6 years ago I divorced my wife of 12 years. We got married when we were very young and had a child not long after that. We had many troubles over the years and we jointly decided to end it. 1 year later I met the woman of my dreams. She was attractive, attentive, and with her I had the best times of my whole life. We were dating for about 6 months however when she fell pregnant, and I decided to propose. Partly it was because I wanted to do the right thing, but mostly because I loved her and wanted to spend my life with her. And this is where things go downhill. I never knew it at the time, but when we started dating she was in a relationship with a guy. They were high school sweethearts and had been together for almost 10 years by then. Bottom line is that she cheated on him. Not long after we became engaged, within days she became less affectionate and our intimacy basically went out of the window. I tried to talk to her about it a few times, and in the end she just said that she doesn't need it anymore since she felt less insecure with herself. Knowing that people are different, I left it at that and slowly started to become used to it. A few months later our time life took a massive dive, and it is years later now and things have just been going worse. 2 years ago however things took a turn. I came across messages with another guy that was entitledparents in nature, and there was an exchange of naughty pics. I confronted her about it, and she came out and said that she just enjoyed the attention. We worked through all of that, and while our relationship wasn't worse after that, it certainly wasn't better. Then less than a month ago she asked me to drop her off for a job interview. I should probably mention that in all the time we had been together she had never had a job. I earn enough to support us both, so it never bothered me. I tried to encourage her a few times to get a job, because I know it must be hard to be at home all the time with our 2 kids. 2 weeks ago however my life came crashing down. I came across messages where she made arrangements to meet different guys. For time. In return for money. The meeting where she had me drop her off for the interview, was actually to meet a guy for coffee. I confronted her about it, and she says that she never had time with any of them. Even though the messages I can see they make arrangements for him to pick her up where I dropped her off. I have also learned a few other things since then, some of which she told me, and some that I found out on my own. I confronted her about the things I found out on my own, and she confirmed that it happened. 1. She slept with her sister's husband before we became involved, or so she says. 2. She cheated on her boyfriend, with me without me knowing. 3. She had an emotional affair with a guy. 4. She cheated on me with her ex, and had time with both of us over the period our child was conceived. She admits that she doesn't know whose child it is. 5. She met up with a guy, she says only one, but I have my doubts. Only had coffee, I have my doubts, in return for money. So not only has she lied, deceived and cheated on me, there is now doubt whether my son is actually mine. I don't know what to do anymore. I think I still love her, but I am staying because of our children. If my son isn't mine, and I want to be in his life, then I have to stay with her. If he isn't mine, then she can keep him from me unless I am willing to drag everything to court. I don't ever want the kids to know what their mother did, so I don't have any choice but to keep quiet and stay in the relationship. How can I make things better for me? Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, get paternity tests and get a divorce attorney. If you think she is magically going to stop being a W, or you are delusional. Answer, I agree. The saying goes that if it happens once, it will happen again. And she proves the point herself because it has already happened at least 3 times. I know it will happen again, and if she gets married again it is going to happen to that guy as well. Redditor 2, paternity test then leave? Her lifestyle isn't going to change, probably get worse as she seeks more danger and excitement. Redditor 3, if you feel you need to know whether the kid is genetically yours or not, then go with a DNA test. I understand that for you. This kid is yours no matter what, and you love that kid since you mention you want to be in his life. Best course of action would be to have the DNA test without her knowing about such thing. This way you can confirm the kid is yours or not before you, potentially, start any divorce procedure. Let's face it, with her history of cheating and what she did behind your back, It's obvious that this is the kind of person she is, and hoping for her to change and or stop lying cheating would not be realistic. The relationship is toxic to your own emotional health and you need to get away from it. As for the kid, he is not at an age where he can comprehend what is happening, and I feel it's something that he will not be aware of the reason the divorce happened if it happened only later in life. By then the kid will be matured enough to understand it all. It's better to raise that kid alone, knowing that he is in a healthy environment rather than staying with your wife and breeding an environment that will just get hostile as time goes and you're done with her habit. Think of your course of action thoroughly. Paternity test, I hope that's the right term. If you need to really know the truth, consider the divorce and improve your life from there. Answer, where I live fathers don't get the kids in a divorce often, and I have no hope in hell in getting him if he isn't mine. Choosing a divorce and a happy life for me is selfish when compared to his needs. My biggest fear is that she goes through with the time for money, aka prostitution, if she is on her own, and what life would there be for him with that as an example. I have even thought of getting the divorce and using blackmail sister's husband and the prostitution to get the kids, but I am not sure if I can do that to her, no matter what she has done to me. She might be a less than desirable wife, but she is a good mother that has made some questionable decisions. Redditor 4, it sounds like she is cripplingly insecure and is getting an ego boost or power trip out of cheating. The harder the target sister's husband, the bigger the boost. In her eyes, it is presumably a massive confirmation of her powers over men that guys would even pay just to have time with her when they could get it free on Tinder any day. From your story, she wanted to be the perfect partner to you until she was certain you wouldn't leave her, at which stage she stopped trying. Sounds like there is a lesson here that if something is too good to be true, it presumably isn't. Sadly, as she was certain of you, she also didn't feel the ego boost from your attentions anymore, and with that she lost interest. I didn't get the impression that she forms normal relationships, but instead makes it all about her need for confirmation or power, or alternatively her partner's needs to not lose them, while being convinced that were she act as the real her, the other party would leave. It is all really messy. The short of it is that your wife needs help, but you don't need to be around for that. The woman who you proposed to is gone and likely was never actually there. Document her conversations where she is exchanging time for money and present them as evidence to get custody of your children. Ask her to see a counselor, although she might well refuse. Get a good lawyer to make sure she doesn't take you to the cleaners. Redditor 5, that is a tough situation to be in. My guess you probably want to go through another divorce as well, knowing how fun the first one was. As I see it, you really only have two options. A, speak with a divorce attorney, explain the situation, and get that professional guidance you need. B, you just accept that she is a promiscuous woman who is never going to change and that you will just live with it. Essentially, you are now in an open marriage forced upon you by your wife. I would divorce her. There are plenty of fish in the sea and life is too short for so much drama. Answer, if I have to make a decision about my own happiness and my son's, then I choose him every time. I can honestly not see a way where I can divorce her and get custody. But you are right in that I should go see an attorney. Redditor 6, sometimes a person cheats and it's a one-off terrible mistake that they never repeat. That's salvageable. What you have here is the worst kind of cheater. She's a liar, deceitful, no integrity whatsoever, selfish, and cruel. You clearly need real, non-Reddit legal advice, because making decisions based on what you think might happen with your son is very stupid. You cannot continue in this relationship. Do not stay with this horrible person. Redditor 7, I'm one of the few people on here who regularly advise trying to make it work with cheating spouses the majority of the time. Not this time, though. She's not just cheating, she's a prostitute for apparently no good reason other than to be deviant. That means it's part of her character, and most likely unchangeable. If you want to stay together, please stop having time for the sake of your health, negotiate an open relationship, and make it all about your children. Redditor 8, get her addicted to crocodile? Answer, I know what a crocodile is, like an alligator, but don't understand the context. Redditor 9, you need serious advice, maybe head over to divorce. Redditor 10, all of the advice here seems pretty spot on. I'd just like to add, go to a clinic and get tested for STDs. Odds are she isn't telling you everything. Redditor 11, You do have choices, and although some choices may be more difficult than others, you need to choose for a better life for you. You don't deserve those things. She does not sound like a loyal person, and that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. However, she is not ready to satisfy your needs, and that is a huge part of a relationship. Redditor 12. If the child is not yours, get a divorce. If the child is yours, get a divorce. She is a cheater and you deserve better. You have been playing the part of a doormat op. Redditor 13. Well, that's ducked up. Sorry it happened, but you sort of did it to yourself. 1. Do not marry someone you've only known for a few months, because you really don't know enough about them. 2. Do not marry someone who demonstrates they are not sexually compatible with you and cannot meet your needs. This won't prevent cheating specifically, but it will prevent an inevitable explosion of some sort. Redditor 14. You were kind of her pimp, dropping her off for John's. Redditor 15. Run far away. Redditor 16. As others have said, get paternity tests, and a good divorce lawyer. Once a cheat, always a cheat. She at least cheated on you emotionally. Redditor 17. Paternity test, then therapy, lots of it. You've stayed a long time with a person that you've known hasn't been faithful. There's something inside of you that thinks you're not good enough for something better. Redditor 18. EU. Redditor 19. I can tell you one thing for sure, if she's meeting guys to discuss time for money, she's having time with them. She is lying to you, probably about everything, but definitely about that. Get a DNA test and leave her whether the children are yours or not. It doesn't sound like she's the most reliable parent, so make sure your children are taken care of. If she's as selfish as she sounds, they may be better off not being with her full time. Redditor 20. Why do you love someone who can so easily disrespect you by whoring around? She doesn't deserve your love.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.